Scary Alvarez is back, and I'm here to ask an important question. Is Greg Gard being allowed to cook in the transfer portal? Big question, guys. Throw a Scary like and a subscription if you haven't already. So this podcast is going to be twofold, its purposes. One of them is going to be to give you updates on the guys Wisconsin's landed and potentially might land. And the next part of it is a bigger picture, 10,000-foot view of where this might go and why. Why it's like it is. Why it is different than 2025 and 2024. I've talked about it previously, but this is going to be a little more specific. And, I'm not a rumors and innuendo account. I don't do that. That's not my thing. I'm probably going to get a very modest amount of clicks either way. But there are a couple things that I've heard on message boards, which I don't spend much time on, but these things raise my eyebrows a little bit regarding the program, Greg Gard money, things like that. So I'm going to just dip my toe into that at least. Anyway, let's get to who Wisconsin has landed in the portal. And for purposes of our discussions today, I'm going to consider Owen Foxwell a portal guy. He is technically a 2026 class recruit, but he was brought in. We didn't know it at the time, but it is pretty clear now that this was not some entree to get his brother. This is a in and of itself kind of commitment, and he is going to be Wisconsin's starting point guard next year. 22 years old. So a little bit of the Mike Hastings school of transfers. Get the older experienced guys from leagues that previously had not been used much. This is an Australian playing in a top Australian league, playing the most difficult position on his team in point guard. Got, average 11 and 4.5, playing pro ball. Yeah, it's not the NBA. We get it. It's not some of the best leagues in Europe, but it's a well-regarded league. And another Australian is coming to Madison, guys. He's going to have 4 years left. We'll see, given the state of affairs, whether he spends all 4 years on Wisconsin or he transfers somewhere else or he goes pro. Maybe he goes back home. We don't know. But right now, Owen Foxwell has been given the keys to the Wisconsin program at the point guard position, replacing Nick Boyd. And there's a lot to like here. I mean, he's a solid shooter. I don't think he's a volume scorer. I don't think there's any scenario that sees him as a volume scorer in the way that Nick Boyd was. I don't think it's going to be a closer in the way that Nick Boyd was. You just have to get Nick Boyd out of your mind. That was a one-year thing. And we aren't going to have Nick Boyd next year in Owen Foxwell, but we are going to have, in my opinion, based on early returns, a really good shot at having a solid Big Ten point guard there. So I do like that. I do like that signing, that addition. That's a good one. And again, this isn't a deep dive into these guys. It's a shallow dive in the larger theme of Wisconsin's portal class and the even larger theme of Wisconsin's talent level with the basketball program going forward. This one just came down the pipeline, and I had a couple hints from it from a couple of the awesome guys who cover the Badger beat, not by name, but Nick Osen comes to mind. But Trey Autry. For those olds amongst us, the name Autry probably rings a bell. Not Gene Autry, not that old, but Adrian Autry, a former star point guard for the Syracuse Orange. They were called something else at the time. This is his kid. This is a really intriguing prospect, and I've seen people saying how this is, a six-man or a off-the-bench production in the way that Braden Carrington was. I don't know exactly, because there's still things we're going to talk about as far as who we may add. But right now, I think you can probably slot him in to John Blackwell's position. Guys, I mean, you don't have to like it, but let's take a peek at this guy just real quick. I'll tell you, you could do a lot worse than Trey Autry. This is a multi-year starter on George Washington A-10 team, real solid. Not a high-end A-10 team, but a solid A-10 team. He's an 11, 3.5, 1.5 guy, shooting guard. Very importantly, for purposes of Greg Gard's team, he is a almost 40% three-point shooter. And imagine getting a little extra space. That could go up. Now, of course, the defenders are going to be a little better, and the closeouts quicker in the Big Ten. But yeah, this is an intriguing pickup. And guys, I'm not about the cope where anyone Gard brings in, I'm just going to say, oh wow, intriguing, great, wonderful. Yeah, I'm not a scout, but I did a little bit of work on him and got some opinions on him from some people I trust. And this is a rock solid addition to this class. There is no question. And whether he ends up starting and whether he ends up coming off the bench, again, for reasons I'll get into, we're not sure there, guys. This is someone who could help your team and appears to be, and obviously we'll find out this late summer into early fall, but appears to be a really nice fit for this offense. Your buddy over at Lockdown Badgers, Ryan Herring, one of the best in the Wisconsin business right now, did a little bit of a deep dive into Autry's defensive abilities, and it's a little bit of a mixed bag, as Herring said. But his on-the-ball defense on the one-to-one appears to be very, very good. It's when the ball is not in his defenders, his guy he's guarding's hands, things fall apart a little bit. But there's stuff to work with there. This is not a defensive black hole, so to speak. There's potential there. So anyway, Foxwell and Autry are going to be coming in for the very current moment as a placeholder. That's Boyd and Blackwell going out. Does not appear to be an awesome 1-for-1, but again, as Greg Gard had mentioned, I'm about to get into Greg Gard. This is a little bit of a money ball situation. This is a little bit of you are replacing really irreplaceable kind of guys with different pieces and parts to try and make the whole greater than the sum. And that's where we are right now. So, really quick before I get into the real big picture, Wisconsin is in on Ian Elmer. He's 6'6", small forward out of Miami. I really like this kid. This would be a plug and play starter for sure. He would come right in. He would be a Wisconsin starter. That guy can shoot, decent defender. Got some real stiff competition for this guy, unfortunately, from Baylor, from Dayton, a few other schools in there. So it's probably going to come down to money. But he had to visit it, and apparently the visit went well. But I am in no position to know anything about projecting him to Wisconsin. It wouldn't shock me if he committed to Wisconsin, but I don't have that information. So that would be a really, really nice thing. And there's 2 or 3 starters at least you're replacing, and that's absolutely fine. That's a roadie replacement. Maybe not quite the scrappy defense that Rhodey had, but by all accounts, a superior offensive player coming in from Miami. And Rhodey, by the way, this is just a very small aside. His offensive game germinating and ending up like it did in Wisconsin last year was one of the few things that really shocked me. He's better than he played offensively last year. I'm not sure what happened there. It was very surprising. He's a good kid, and I'm not trying to poo-poo on Andrew Rhodey, but yeah. Anyway, so getting back to Wisconsin's team, this is a quick hitter. Going to get you out of here to more important things you have in your day, just a few minutes. But I have to first preface this by saying something that I saw on a message board, and I'm not a message board guy in terms of there's so much bull crap sitting around on message boards. You don't know what to believe. Yes, if it's something that OSIN, endorses, or it's doing an actual quote. But there are some guys on these message boards, especially admins, who know a thing or two, who are dialed in. I have to give them a little bit of props there. This is not a a fishing expedition. This is oftentimes there's some fire where there's smoke. And one of the things that, and again, I want to be clear before I say this, I am not breaking this as news. I do not have any independent knowledge that this is true. So take this for whatever grain of salt you want to take it. I could not get anyone to confirm this, anyone whose opinion I trust to confirm this. But it was reported on this board by one of the admins just 2 days ago that before McIntosh left, Greg Gard basically was headed on his way out of Wisconsin. One more time, I'm not saying I have any independent knowledge. This is true. This is reported on a board, so take it for what it's worth. But apparently there was extreme frustration at the financial situation and some of the other things, and Gard was basically like, I can do without this. And some administrators, boosters, you can fill in the blanks here with your imagination, talked him off the ledge. Again, no one has confirmed this. I've reached out to 3 or 4 people who would be more likely to know this than I would. And I didn't have anyone say, I know with 100% certainty that did not happen, no one confirmed it. So that's where we are. But anyway, let's just pretend for a moment that this is true. It's understandable. Like it tracks for me that Greg Gard, although a lot of it was still using his crafty Guardian stuff, brought in what was heralded as a really incredible deep class last year. And then to go from that to having to pinch pennies the very next year when you're seeing football doing NIL at record levels, it is very difficult. If you put me in Gard's position as the basketball coach, it would be very hard for me, no matter how good a guy I am, no matter how much of a team player I am, to not be incensed and feel betrayed by that situation. That, one additional, because really some of these football, and I'm happy Wisconsin got the football guys. I'm not sitting here crapping on the portal class for Wisconsin, but one of those guys that we were all celebrating and cheering about 3 months ago landing could have been a starting Wisconsin basketball player, no problem. So that's the trade-off we're making, and apparently, whereas we're all cheering that football stuff, it was coming, at least at some level, at the expense of the basketball's team's ability to reload. And I can see being frustrated by that if I'm Greg Gard. Now, the temporal relationship between this alleged Greg Gard situation and McIntosh resigning, I can't tie those two together, but certainly these things are happening at the same time. So perhaps, there's been a lot of speculation as to whether this was, I did a show a few days ago on an article with Bucky's Fifth Quarter on the reasons that McIntosh may have done this or may have been pushed into doing it. Layering on this Greg Gard thing, it makes it even more intriguing to me. Again, I don't have any confirmation, nor am I suggesting that Greg Gard went into someone's office, complained, and then McIntosh was let go or given an ultimatum. I do not have that information. But the temporal relationship in time and events between this and McIntosh leaving, at a bare minimum, raises questions and is certainly intriguing for me looking at this. So anyway, just some food for thought. And I think I've disclaimed it enough where someone's not going to go, and Scary Alvarez said that McIntosh was forced out by Greg Gard. I'm not saying that. But ignoring these events and considering them to be independent of each other with a certainty, I caution against that. I don't know what's going on. Greg Gard, he's not Luke Fickell in terms of the, amount of influence he may have in the athletic department, but he has been there 11 years. He is deeply respected by members of the Wisconsin community. I understand that the boosters aren't as enthusiastic about basketball as they are about football. That is not an unusual situation at Wisconsin. But he has some gravitas and he has some credibility. And there are several rooms that he walked into that he probably has more and well-earned gravitas and respectability and push than McIntosh probably did in those same rooms, because Gard's been doing it so long. Anyway, just some thought. And again, this isn't TMZ, but I can't ignore this. I mean, this is something. It wasn't like on this board, everyone's like, "Oh, you're full of crap." No, people. Now, the fact there hasn't been stories on it is probably just people who make a living on this being extra careful not to ruffle feathers, or maybe they independently found it wasn't true. I don't know. Either way, though, that's where I am, and I am hopeful that my final thing here is that Wisconsin has a few more bucks, and they can go out and get an Elmer guy and then have an interior defender come in, a 4 or a 5, to eat some minutes. I think those two things are vitally important. But as of right now, guys, I believe you have to go forward presuming that Owen, Foxwell, and Trey Autry are going to be starting for the Wisconsin Badgers next year, whether you like it or not. And the fact that both have good upside and what I consider to be pretty high floors, this offseason could well not be a disaster that we all were making it out to be a couple of days ago. So be patient, let Gard cook, and there will be definitely another show on this coming up in the next 5 days to 10 days to talk about additional people we got or didn't get. There's a few guys coming in today, Zens, and I don't think they're going to Wisconsin. I think a kid from St. Thomas is going to be going to Marquette. I don't think Badgers are going to get these guys. But anyway, Scary Alvarez, appreciate your comments. Throw them down there. If you have any intel, always hit me up. And Scary Alvarez is out.